Hello, welcome. We are back today with the top 5 format warping cards from MH2. This was hard to figure out what I was going to do with it because if you just say top 5 cards from Modern Horizons 2, there's so many ways to take it. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to choose the 5 that were the ones that warp the format, the ones that decks are built around, the ones that other decks are built around, what has now been enabled, what has strengthened decks' weaknesses, and lifted them up to be tier 3 to maybe tier 1. And I think that is the best way I would go about trying to pick these 5 cards because the fifth was impossible to pick. So let's get into it. Number 5, boom, Melktie Regent. So this one was a toss up. I had this one and Dragon Rage Channeler. Sorry, I couldn't decide. I had to ask multiple people, and this is what led me to pick from going from top 5 MH2 cards to top 5 format warping cards. That way it made it easier for me because DRC is a very good card, but literally everyone already had a rule for it anyways. You already have your bolts, you already have your unholy heats, your fatal pushes, your prismatic endings. They're all there. But then Melktie, you literally have to build, I guess, a sideboard for it. Put in 2 terminates. Put in people are playing bad like sack a flying creature because they need answers to Melktie Regent. So even though it's not in every single deck, pretty much every single deck has to respect it because if you don't, you'll be the buy. They just play a Regent and you're like, oh crap, I have this Unholy Heat, but they made it a 7/7. I have this Prismatic Ending, but they haven't invented purple yet, you know? And so you have all these issues that come up. So I think this deck has warped decks to alter their removal to still respect Melktie Regent. But there are stronger decks in the format right now that are very good against Melktie, which I think is pushing it out. The rise of a bunch of Solitudes is why Melktie is kind of on the back end, but then you'll see it spike a tournament every now and then and win it because is it Monkey is still a very, very good deck. So that's my number 5, and that's how the criteria for what we are going to be picking these cards around. And so hopefully that gives a better understanding as to why DRC is not on this list and why Melktie is number 5 versus DRC. Okay, let's go to number 4. Monkey. Okay, this one, another, I would say, a little bit controversial pick. People are like, how is it not number 1? You know, like, should have been higher. But I think the other cards deserve it more. I know that this card has been bonkers, and it's literally, you play red, you play this deck. You're playing mono red, you're playing prison. Doesn't matter, you throw Monkey in. But it doesn't change other decks besides that they're forced to play more one-cost removal. So yes, decks are still respecting it and playing more cheap removal than they should. And Monkey is a huge part of that. But I don't think that it changes the entire format to have to play around it. People are still doing their own strategies. It's more of Rogban is like, oh, this really sucks. But it's not, I have to have turn removal every single turn or I'm going to lose the game. Yes, you may still lose because you didn't have it, but it's still get answered by things like Renin 6, which is huge, I think. And then being able to have Solitudes most of the time Prismatic Ending, but Dash gets around it. And so I think Monkey is solidly 4th in the way that it warps other decks, but it really doesn't change much of the decks that were around. They just add Monkey. And it's just such a good card on its own that it doesn't matter. Whereas with DRC, you have to build around your deck has to be built around it. You have to have the baubles, you have to have all the Delirium package, and it's still a very good card, but Monkey just playing red, throw that bad boy in. And it has definitely changed Modern forever. And Aspiring Spike said today that he thinks that Rogvan is a very strong and over. I want to say over push because I don't know if that was exact words, but it's a very strong card where it was so strong that it is not bannable, but is at that point of just being right at the peak. And so that was the issue with Rogvan and it being a tier of its own. And so let's go to number 3 as to what was the most format warping cards from MH2. Solitude. If we look, I think, at my old list, I don't even think Solitude was top 5. But like, boy, was I wrong. This card is absolutely insane. Back before when I was making the top 5 cards from this set, I almost had Solitude number 1, and that's just how bonkers this card is. It allows you to have removal for anything. It allows you to have removal pitching a card. It's made Kahira one of the best companions single-handedly, which is absolutely insane. The fact that it combos so well with Solitude that you just get it from your sideboard and then put it into hand and then pitch it. It's allowed strategies to play super greedy 4-color mana bases and then be okay because we have a 0 mana removal spell. It doesn't matter because we have every single card in our deck being a 2-for-1. So I'm okay losing this advantage. And we also have Kahira as well. So Kahira just becomes a 3 mana Swords of Plowshare, which is kind of nuts. And this deals with Melktie Regent. It deals with every single creature except Hexproof, which is just nuts. And it allows you to be good against Hammer Time, which is also insane. And so everyone has to play around the thought in the back of their head, like, if I swing all out with this Hammer Time, there's a good chance I can just lose because they're tapped out, but they still have Solitude. And so I think this has completely changed the format, and I love it and hate it at the same time. Like, I played blue-white, I got 10th in Vegas, and I literally just kept thinking to myself, this is a broken card. This is insane. Every time I played Solitude, it was just like, oh, I'll tap out. Oh, okay, they're going to swing for 10. Oh, Solitude. Save the day, doesn't matter. Like, it just felt so unfair that you could just snag it, snag someone for 0 mana and just pitch it and play this and get a broken effect. And then also hard casting it. These decks tend to go long in all the Solitude decks. There's not a Solitude deck that plays it without their game time average being able to cast it. Meaning, like, the decks that play Solitude, on average, they're ending maybe like turn 8, turn 9. They're not ending on like turn 3, 4 like the normal modern decks. And so that's I think why Solitude is just so good. It answers everything, and then it can either be played as a creature and be a insane, sometimes 3-for-1, being able to exile, block, and then they still have to answer it. And so this is probably one of my favorite cards from Modern Horizons 2, and definitely one of the strongest that's changed Modern going forward. Let's go to number 2. Urza's Saga. People are playing Spreading Seas in the main as a 4-of single-handedly because of this card. Every red deck has Alpine Moon in their sideboard. You have to have Dress Down. Like, people, main deck Dress Downs, not specifically for this card, but because it's a perfect answer to this card. And then there's so much that happens because of this card. So yeah, it's altered other decks. It's insanely strong. This was the other card that Aspiring Spike said was very powerful, but not powerful enough to get banned, which my thoughts have go back and forth on, but I think I agree that Saga and Monkey are the 2 cards that they're not going to get banned. I think they're very, very strong, but they're not strong enough to get kicked out of the format yet, unless they print something stupid with Urza Saga that just, give us a Mox Opal, something dumb like that. So I think this is a very strong number 2 because not only does it change your deck with what your 0 and 1 costs are, you can like main deck Pithing Needle or Lantern. It also changes other decks around it. That, again, I played Control. I had 4 of Spreading Seas. You know how good it felt when I was on the play and I was against Amulet and they would go turn 1 Saga and I go, just my eyes, they just glow. I was like, oh my goodness, this doesn't even feel normal. Not only do I get to pillage them, I get to draw a card as well. And so I think that's the trade-off with it, is you have such an insanely high power level with such a huge drawback that doesn't matter. Like, were they sad that I took away their land? Yes, but they still can kill me in 3 turns. They can still kill me turn 4 with just play a second Amulet and then boom, boom, boom. So, you know what they say, with great power comes great responsibility. I think that's where Urza Saga is at right now. It warps your deck, warps others. Insanely strong. It can put out win cons if not answered. We're playing Dress Down now because of it. Super, super good card. And definitely, again, changed Modern forever, honestly. it's not the same format it was 4 years ago. It's never going to be the same, and we're just going to keep going forward, and we're going to get more broken cards, and I guess we're going to have to be okay with that. Like, I've hated that for a while, but it is what it is, and you just got to learn to love it, because they are fun cards. They're insanely fun cards. It's just, they're also insanely broken, but I think I'm okay pushing forward as long as we keep getting more broken stuff. And for our number one, that I was going to put for my number one for modern cards anyways, Prismatic Ending. This is probably the best removal card they've printed in a long, I don't even know since when, in a long time. Like, think of how good Path to Exile was before. Like, you played it even though it sucked giving your opponent a basic land. That card's gone now. That card doesn't exist in Modern. That's a sideboard one of, if anything. This card does it all. When I saw it, I was like, oh, it's sorcery? Who cares? I don't want that garbage. And then I think it was Sam Black who tweeted out, this is an insane removal spell. And I was like, Sam Black doesn't know what he's talking about. Old man. Boy, was I wrong. This card, you're splashing it in your Grixis deck. It's like a splashable card that is insane splashing because it gets better. It answers everything. It answers red and sixes when I couldn't do that before in blue-white. It answers indestructible creatures. It answers enchantments. It answers artifacts. It answers planeswalkers, creatures. I'm just going off on everything. It literally does it all. Like, I'll play a 2-color deck, and I'll splash 2 colors because of this card. This card has enabled so many decks to have such insane removal. Like, we have 4-color decks because Prismatic Ending is just the best removal spell in Modern. Sure, it can answer a Murktide, but it literally can answer everything else 5 CMC or less. And it answers it cleanly. Going to exile versus destroying it is huge. So, you have decks mana bases warped around it. 4-color greedy mana base is super popular. They're playing it in mono white hammer because it's that good. It answers all the problematic cards for them. It's easy to splash second color with silent clearing for them. You get to literally do whatever you want and then have the best removal spell. So these 4-color greedy decks that were supposed to be going to Astrolabe are alive and thriving right now. And a huge part of it is because of Prismatic Ending. It feels so bad sometimes when I was like, okay, I can play this out and I'm great unless they have Ending, and they have it. And boy, does it suck just having your primary win con go to exile. The one thing it does not hit though is a monkey that is dashed. That is the one drawback of this card, is you cannot hit monkey that is dashed. But I think this is by far the hands down most format warping card that was printed. I was going to put it number 1 for best cards from MH2 because it's literally changed so many decks. It's enabled so many strategies, and it's the best removal spell they printed in a long time. I think it's the best removal spell in Modern for cost efficiency and for versatility. It's absolutely insane, and I love this card so much. Like, huge fan of this card. I can't even tell you how much I love this card that has enabled so many dumb stuff. Like, I'm a huge fan of blue-white, and when I got this card, I was literally just crying. I was like, this is the best day of my life. This is so much better than playing Path to Exile. Like, Path to Exile feels awful. And you know what the best part is? If you have to fairy, this thing's instant anyways, and it's probably one of the most broken spells ever if it was instant. But yeah, that is my top 5 cards. I hope you guys enjoy it. Let me know down below what you think is the most format warping cards or how accurate I was. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day.